Hey everyone, so we're gonna learn how to paint different layers of this forest scene, and you can see right there I have some of the light colors for the background sky being painted so that we can proceed straight away into the painting of these different layers. So this is to make sure that the first layer is dry before we actually move on to those layers at the front. So we can see from the reference image that we have all these different layers, one darker than the other. So we have at least 3 different areas, and we are going to paint the first layer first and then move on to the second layer, which is done on top, and before we actually move on to the darkest. So the order is from the lightest to the darkest, right? So we have some of the purples there on the left hand side, and we're gonna use some of the orange, and this orange and some of the reds is depicting some of the trees at the foreground, and just trying to make sure that we have all these purples that are combined with the orange, and just making sure that we have this part which is done, and that will give us this very nice kinds of combinations of the blues, the purples and the orange, and that will help us with the depicting of all these different kinds of colors that are very nicely blended together to form these the silhouette of the trees that we see right here. And just using the brush to help me with the combining of all these different kinds of colors. We have reds, we have orange, we have the blues and the purples. So just trying to make sure that we move on to the right hand side, and just using some of the purples that help me with this very light kind of second layer. So the first layer is the sky, and then we can have this second layer, which is the trees, the furthest layer of the tree that is being painted. And you can see right there I'm actually going over the dark tree at the right hand side. Doesn't matter because the dark tree is going to go on top of this layer once this layer is dry. So while waiting for this to dry, I'm going to use some of these dark colors to help me with the painting of this dark area at the front first. So the thing is, we want to make sure that we start from the bottom, because I don't want to touch the areas that are still not dry, because that will smudge the watercolors. It will, just mess up everything because it is still not dry yet. So once it is dry, then it will not spread. Right, so I'm just going to do these dry areas first, and while waiting for it to dry, that will help us to be able to depict that those areas which are touching the layer of forest that we did. So here in the dark areas, I actually use different dark colors. We have darker browns, we have dark blues. So all these different colors again will help us to have all these very rich kinds of darks. So just using all these very quick brush strokes to help me in combining all these different colors and different kinds of dark colors that we see. So again, we don't want to use just a neutral black, because that will be a little bit not so interesting. And when we have all these different dark colors like dark blues and dark reds and browns, that will help us to have a more vibrant kind of darks. And you can see right there we have all these very subtle changes of colors within the darks, and that will give us some very nice kind of colors and very nice kind of color transitions and very rich kinds of colors. So that will give us some very rich kinds of colors, dark colors. And you can see right now that the first layer is almost dry, so we can just paint the dark areas on top. And this is only possible when we are sure that the first layer is dry. And you can see right now I'm actually painting on top of the first layer that we just did. Using this small brush, I'm just trying to depict the texture of the trees, all these leaves that are coming out from the tree. So that will give us this very nice silhouette of this tree that is very much darker than the layer that is behind it. So using my small brush, I'm just trying to depict all these different colors, all these different dark colors, and all these different kinds of trees, leaves, and so on and so forth. Right, so using the small brush, just trying to complete the outline for the trees. So I'm just using my small brush again to depict some of the houses at the front. So using the small brush, just trying to have all these dark blues that make up the house right there. So that's the roof of the house. We have two houses right there, one just beside that tree and one to the left of that house that I'm drawing. So using some of the darker blues, just trying to depict all these different colors and different kinds of the outline for the house. So just trying to make the roof a little bit lighter than the rest. We can see the use of blues right there. I'm just trying to have all these different colors and all these different strokes that will make up the trees to the left hand side of the house, and we can have all these very quick kinds of small strokes for the some of the trees right there. So you can see right there that this area is not flat, so we need to use a small brush to kind of like have all these different flicks of the brush, all these different strokes that will show the outline for the trees that are like popping out, that are coming out from the dark area. Right, so the thing is we need to have all these different layers that are done. So later on I'll be moving on to some of the details of the trees in the background. As you can see right there, it's not just one layer, but we have at least two other layers that you can see right there that will depict some of the details for the trees. So after we are done with this darkest area, we are going to move on to the depicting of these trees. So what I do is actually I mix purple with light brown, so that will give us some very nice warm kind of purple. And then I'm just gonna proceed on by painting the right hand side where we have all these silhouettes of the trees. So using my small brush, I'm just trying to make sure that we have all these different colors in, and we have these darker kind of purples that are slightly darker than the first layer that we just did. So this second layer is the making up of all these trees in the background, but they are darker than the first layer. Right, so that is how we can actually do all these different trees with different layers, and that will give us a very nice kind of layering effect. Okay, so you can see right there that the bottom part of this tree right here is lighter than the top part because of some of the mist. Perhaps it is morning, so we can see the effects of the mist on the bottom part of the tree. So again, using my small brush, I'm just trying to make sure that we have all these different purples combined with a little bit of that orange that will give us some of the details for all these trees. So again, we want to change and vary the colors that and the tones for all these trees, because we don't want it to be too uniform. And by using the small brush, I'm just trying to make sure that we have some of the blues that are combined with the purples. So that will give us some very nice effects, right? So that helps us to make sure that we have all these trees that are standing out from the first layer, and it is just slightly darker than the first layer. So using that blue, again we see the variations of colors, varying the tone also, so making sure that it's darker, lighter, and so on and so forth. So that will help us to have all these different kinds of colors and different kinds of tones that we see. Again, we see more trees that are now being painted on the left hand side. Right, so it's just using my small brush to kind of like touch up everything. So using some of the darker strokes. So right now the right hand side is dry because we painted that first, and so once it is dry, we can use some of these small little brush strokes to depict some of the very fine details of those darker trees that are coming out, okay, for the first layer. So this part here is the darkest, so it is done right at the end after we have done all these lighter parts of the trees. So again, we see the third layer that is being painted right here. So again, using that small brush, just trying to depict all these trees, that is darker than the layer before that, and that will help us to have all these different kinds of trees that are sticking out. And again, as I mentioned, there are at least 3 different layers that we see, and the first layer is done by the lightest color, followed by subsequent darker colors that will help us to have all these details standing out. Right, so we want to change the height of the trees to make it more interesting as well, and we want to have all these different shapes. So you can see right there, the left hand side is not completely dry, but we are going to make sure that we have some of these trees that are being painted in the middle part. So using that small brush, I'm just trying to make sure that we have all these different kinds of strokes for the leaves and for the branches, for the trees, for the tree trunks. And we're almost done with this painting right here. And so you can see how I actually did all these different kinds of layers from the lightest to the darkest. So using the small brush, just trying to make sure that we have some birds in the sky, just 4 birds. Okay, so making sure we have all these very quick strokes to depict some of these birds, and we are almost done with this painting right here. Hey everyone, thank you for watching my video, and I hope you have gained valuable insights from my tutorial. If you enjoyed my video, hit the like button, comment down below, and share my video. Do consider subscribing to my channel and hit the notification bell so you'll be notified when I post my next video. Do check out the links below for more information for my art, and I hope to see you in the next one.